The blaring alarm shattered the silence of the UES Retribution's command deck. Commander Ethan Blake shot up from his chair, his eyes instantly scanning the holographic display that materialized before him. A distress signal, faint but unmistakable, pulsated at the edge of known space. "Source?" Ethan asked, his voice calm despite the adrenaline already flooding his system. Lieutenant Lena Zhang's fingers danced across her console. "Sector 7 Gamma Quadrant, Planet Elysium." Her brow furrowed as she worked. "Commander, the signal's encrypted, but it's using an old Alliance protocol." Ethan strode across the bridge, the cool metal floor reflecting the red emergency lights. It had been 3 years since the United Earth Forces had established diplomatic relations with the sentient species of Elysium. They were peaceful, technologically advanced, but deliberately isolated from galactic politics. "Play it," he ordered. The air shimmered as a 3-dimensional projection appeared. A humanoid figure materialized, its iridescent skin marred with what appeared to be wounds. Static interrupted the transmission repeatedly, but the desperation in the alien's multifaceted eyes was clear. "Earth forces, urgent, we are under attack." The voice crackled through the speakers. "They call themselves Reapers, harvesting our people, please." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving only the echo of terror hanging in the air. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Lena, what do we know about these Reapers?" "Nothing in our databases, Commander," she replied, her dark eyes reflecting the glow of her screen. "But I'm picking up chatter from our Alliance channels. The Arcturians are in a panic. Whatever these Reapers are, they've got the oldest spacefaring race in our sector terrified." Marcus Kane, the team's sniper, leaned against the doorway, his usually relaxed demeanor now tense. "Well, that's just great. We're rushing headlong into a fight with an enemy nobody knows anything about." Ethan turned to address his team. The 12 men and women before him represented Earth's finest, the Deathworld Special Operations Unit, humans, born on a planet that other species considered nightmarishly hostile, had evolved into one of the most resilient species in the galaxy. What they lacked in technological advancement compared to some of the older races, they made up for in adaptability and sheer tenacity. "We've received a distress call, and we're honor-bound to respond," Ethan stated firmly. "Prep for immediate departure, the full combat loadout." As his team dispersed to prepare, Admiral Helena Frost's hologram appeared on the command deck. Her steely gaze cut through the projection. "Commander Blake, I understand you've intercepted the Elysium distress signal." "Yes, Admiral, we're preparing to respond." "This is not a standard rescue operation." "Blake?" Frost's voice was grave. "We've received urgent communications from the Galactic Council. These Reapers have destroyed 3 advanced civilizations in the past solar cycle. They leave nothing behind." Ethan's expression remained unchanged, but a cold sensation settled in his stomach. "What are we dealing with exactly?" "Unknown. The Council representatives are being evasive. But one thing is clear, no military force that has engaged them has returned." Her eyes narrowed. "Your primary mission is reconnaissance. Assess the threat, gather intelligence, and extract any survivors if possible. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. With all due respect, Admiral, if Elysium is under attack." "That's an order, Commander." Frost cut him off. "The Retribution is one of our most advanced vessels, but we can't risk losing it in a futile battle against an unknown enemy. Intelligence first. The fleet needs to know what we're up against before we commit to full engagement." Ethan nodded stiffly. "Understood, Admiral." As Frost's hologram faded, Ethan stood alone on the command deck, the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. 3 years ago, He had led a similar mission to the mining colony on Titan. His reckless decision to engage a hostile force had resulted in the deaths of half his squad. The faces of the fallen still haunted his dreams. "Not this time," he whispered to himself. "Not again." Hours later, the Retribution dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Elysium system. The ship's sensors immediately began scanning the area, searching for signs of the mysterious attackers. Lena's voice broke the tense silence. "Commander, I'm detecting multiple debris fields. Elysium's orbital defenses have been completely destroyed." Ethan leaned forward, studying the tactical display. "Life signs on the planet. Scattered, concentrated mostly in the southern hemisphere, but there's something else." She adjusted the sensors. "Massive energy readings from the northern continent. Nothing in our database matches the signature." "The Reapers," Marcus muttered. "Solarian, what can you tell us?" Ethan turned to their alien ally, a slender, blue-skinned diplomat who had insisted on joining the mission as an advisor. Solarian stepped forward, his large, reflective eyes blinking rapidly, a sign of distress in his species. "I have heard only legends of the Reapers. They are said to be ancient, appearing suddenly to harvest worlds before disappearing again for centuries. They do not communicate. They do not negotiate. They simply take." "Take what exactly?" Ethan pressed. "Resources, technology, life." Solarian's voice dropped to a whisper. "They extract the essence of sentient beings, absorbing knowledge and genetic material. It is said they use this to evolve, to adapt to any defense against them." Marcus let out a low whistle. "So they're basically the perfect predator." "Perfect is a human concept," Solarian replied. "But yes, in your terms, they are the apex predators of the galaxy." Ethan made his decision. "We'll deploy 2 reconnaissance teams. Alpha Team will investigate the energy signature in the north. Beta Team will head south to locate and extract survivors." He turned to his second-in-command. "Lena, you'll lead Beta. I'll take Alpha." "Commander," Lena protested, "the Admiral's orders were explicit." "We're still gathering intelligence." Ethan cut her off. "But I won't leave those people down there without at least trying to save them." 30 minutes later, Ethan led Alpha Team through the dense, violet-hued forests of Elysium's northern continent. The air was thick with an acrid smell, like burning metal and something organic. The usually vibrant ecosystem was eerily silent. "Keep tight formation," Ethan whispered into his comm. "Passive scans only, Gwen. We don't want to announce our presence." They moved through the underbrush like ghosts, their exosuits enhancing their natural abilities while dampening any sound. Earth's high gravity had made humans naturally stronger than most species, and their adaptive technology only amplified this advantage. Marcus, walking point, suddenly raised his fist, the signal to halt. Ethan moved forward silently, kneeling beside his sniper. "What is it?" Marcus pointed ahead. Through the thinning trees, a massive structure rose into the sky. It wasn't Elysian architecture, which typically featured flowing, organic designs. This was angular, almost crystalline, with pulsing red veins running through its black surface. It hadn't been built. It looked as if it had grown out of the ground. "That wasn't here 3 years ago," Ethan muttered. "Scan it," Marcus suggested. Ethan shook his head. "Too risky. We'll move closer and observe." As they advanced, they began to notice changes in the environment. The plants nearest to the structure were withered, drained of color. The soil itself seemed different, darker, almost metallic in appearance. "Hey, Commander," Corporal Rodriguez's voice came through the comm. "I'm picking up movement, a lot of it." Ethan signaled the team to take cover. They watched as figures emerged from the base of the structure. From a distance, They almost looked human, bipedal, roughly humanoid, but as they moved into the clearing, the differences became apparent. Their bodies were a disturbing fusion of organic matter and machine, with exposed circuitry intertwined with what appeared to be muscle tissue. They moved with unnatural precision, their limbs occasionally twitching in ways that defied normal joint movement. "What the hell are those things?" whispered Sergeant Costas, gripping her pulse rifle tighter. "Unknown," Ethan replied, his enhanced visor zooming in to capture details. "They appear to be some kind of cyborg hybrid." The creatures were gathering materials, stripping minerals from the soil, harvesting plant matter, and collecting what looked like technological components from crates they had brought from inside the structure. "So, Commander," Lena's voice came through his comm. "Beta team has made contact with survivors, Elysian resistance fighters. They're holed up in an underground bunker in the southern region. They say the Reapers arrived 3 days ago and immediately began constructing that structure you're observing. Any intel on what it is? They believe it's some kind of processing facility. The Reapers are extracting resources from the planet at an unprecedented rate. But it's worse than that." Lena's voice dropped. "They're taking people. The Elysians say they're being converted." Ethan's blood ran cold as he watched the hybrid creatures methodically working. "Converted into those things we're seeing?" "Affirmative. The survivors say the process is irreversible. Once taken, no one returns the same." Before Ethan could respond, one of the creatures suddenly stopped its work. It turned, its head swiveling with a mechanical precision that no organic being could achieve. Its face was mostly featureless, save for a cluster of glowing red sensors where eyes should be, and it was looking directly at their position. "We've been spotted," Ethan hissed. "Prepare to fall back." The creature made no sound, but the others immediately stopped their tasks. As one, they turned toward the hidden humans. "Commander, they're communicating somehow," Rodriguez reported, checking his scanner. "I'm detecting low-frequency transmissions between them." "A hive mind?" Ethan wondered aloud. Before they could retreat, the ground beneath them trembled. From the earth erupted more of the creatures, their bodies coated in soil and plant matter. They had been hiding, lying in wait. "It's an ambush!" Ethan shouted. "Open fire!" The quiet forest erupted into chaos. The team's pulse rifles sent blue energy bolts slicing through the air, hitting the advancing creatures. The impacts should have been devastating. The weapons were designed to disrupt both organic tissue and electronic systems. But the creatures barely slowed. Where their bodies were damaged, the wound would briefly glow red before the tissue and machinery would knit back together. "They're regenerating," Marcus called out, firing shot after precise shot. Headshots seemed to slow them down more, but not for long. Ethan activated his command channel. "Retribution, this is Alpha Team. We need immediate extraction. Hostiles are regenerating after taking direct hits." Static answered him. "Retribution, do you copy?" More static. Then a broken transmission, jamming our cannot establish massive energy spike. The structure in the distance had begun to pulse more intensely, the red veins now glowing brilliantly against the black surface. "They're blocking our communications," Ethan realized. "We need to fall back, regroup with Beta Team." They began a fighting retreat, using the dense forest to their advantage. Humans had evolved as persistence hunters on Earth, and their endurance gave them an edge in the withdrawal. But the creatures pursued relentlessly, seemingly tireless. As they reached a narrow ravine, Ethan made a decision. "Rodriguez, Costas, set up the EMP charges. We'll funnel them through here and detonate when they're in the kill zone." The two soldiers quickly placed the devices while the rest of the team provided covering fire. Once in position, they retreated beyond the ravine. "Ready, Commander," Rodriguez confirmed. Wait for my mark, Ethan instructed, watching as the first of the creatures entered the narrow passage. More followed, their movements unnervingly coordinated. Now! The EMP charges detonated, sending a powerful electromagnetic pulse through the ravine. The creatures convulsed as the energy disrupted their systems. For a moment, it seemed to work. They collapsed to the ground, their red lights dimming. Did we get them? Costas asked, peering through her rifle scope. Her question was answered as the creatures began to twitch, then rise once more. Their movements were slower, jerky, but they were still functioning. Fall back to secondary position, Ethan ordered. We need to find another way. They ran for nearly an hour, using every trick and tactic they knew to lose their pursuers. Eventually, they reached a small settlement, now abandoned and partially destroyed. The building showed signs of a desperate battle, with blast marks and structural damage everywhere. Check for survivors, Ethan commanded as they secured the perimeter. Marcus, scanning from a vantage point on a damaged tower, suddenly tensed. Commander, we've got movement from the east, a large group approaching. Ethan readied his weapon, expecting more of the cybernetic horrors. Instead, he was surprised to see a group of Elysians emerge from the tree line, led by what appeared to be human figures. Hold your fire, he ordered, recognizing the uniform of Earth's military on the humans. It's Beta Team. Lena approached, her expression grim. Behind her, the Elysians looked exhausted and terrified. There were perhaps 30 of them, a fraction of what the settlement's population should have been. Lena, report, Ethan said, clasping his second-in-command's arm in relief. We found them hiding in a subterranean research facility, she explained. They've been holding out since the initial attack, but supplies were running low. We had to fight our way out. Those things are everywhere. An Elysian stepped forward, his once elegant robes now tattered and stained. You are the commander? He asked in accented English. Ethan nodded. Commander Ethan Blake, United Earth Forces. I am Jarex, lead researcher of Elysium's Xenobiology Division. We sent the distress call. The alien's voice trembled slightly. We did not expect anyone to come. The Reapers have blocked all conventional communication methods. What can you tell us about them? Ethan asked. What are they after? Jarex gestured for them to follow him into one of the less damaged buildings. Inside, he activated a holographic display showing various data streams and images. The Reapers are not a species as you understand it, he explained. They are a collective, a fusion of organic and synthetic life that spans countless assimilated species. They arrive, harvest resources and life forms, and incorporate what they find useful into their collective. The hologram showed images of the conversion process. Ethan's stomach turned as he watched an Elysian being systematically dismantled and rebuilt with mechanical components. Why Elysium? Lena asked. What makes this planet special? This, Jarex brought up another image, a glowing crystalline substance. Xenorium, an extremely rare element found in abundance on our world. It has unique properties that allow for instantaneous communication across vast distances, regardless of conventional barriers. Marcus whistled low. Faster than light communication without relays or gates. That would revolutionize space travel. And warfare, Ethan added grimly. A force that could coordinate instantly across a battlefield would have an insurmountable advantage. Jarex nodded. The Reapers seek to incorporate this element into their collective consciousness. If they succeed, they will be able to coordinate their forces across the entire galaxy simultaneously. No defense would be effective against such an enemy. That's why they built that structure. Ethan realized. It's not just for processing resources, it's a communication hub. Yes, Jerex confirmed. Once completed, it will amplify their connection to all Reaper forces throughout the galaxy. We believe they are preparing for a massive, coordinated invasion. Ethan shared a look with Lena and Marcus. The implications were clear. This wasn't just about saving Elysium anymore. The entire galaxy was at risk. How do we stop them? He asked. The hub draws enormous power, Jerex explained. It is connected to the planet's core, siphoning energy directly. If the connection were severed, the resulting feedback would destroy the hub and any Reapers connected to its network. And how exactly do we sever a connection to the planet's core? Marcus asked skeptically. Jerex's multifaceted eyes gleamed. Before the invasion, we were researching Xenorium for peaceful purposes. We developed a resonance device that could disrupt its molecular structure. Theoretically, it could destabilize the hub's connection to our core. Theoretically, Lena repeated. We never tested it at full power, Jerex admitted. The device remains in our main research facility, now overrun by Reapers. Ethan considered their options. Admiral Frost's orders had been clear. Gather intelligence and withdraw. But now, with the full scope of the threat revealed, he knew that retreat was not an option. If the Reapers completed their hub, nowhere in the galaxy would be safe. We're going to need a plan, he said finally. And we'll need to contact the Retribution. The Reapers are jamming all standard communications, Jerex reminded him. Then we'll use non-standard methods. Ethan turned to Lena. You said the Elysians were hiding in a research facility. What kind of equipment do they have access to? Over the next few hours, they worked feverishly to modify one of the Elysian communication devices with components from their Earth technology. The result was crude but functional, a directional burst transmitter that might penetrate the Reaper's jamming field for just long enough to send a message. Night had fallen by the time they were ready. The alien moons cast an eerie glow over the ruined settlement as Ethan prepared to send their message. The Elysians had warned that the transmission would likely attract the Reaper's attention. So they had set up defensive positions around the perimeter. Retribution, this is Commander Blake. Do you copy? Ethan spoke into the makeshift communicator. At first, there was only static. Then, breaking through the interference. This is Retribution. We read you. Commander, status report. Quickly. Ethan relayed everything they had learned about the Reapers and their plans. We need to destroy that hub before it's completed. Request immediate orbital strike on these coordinates. Negative, Commander, came the reply. We've been monitoring the structure. It's protected by some kind of energy shield that our weapons can't penetrate. You'll have to disable it from the ground. Ethan's jaw tightened. Understood. We'll need extraction once the mission is complete, and send all available data on this Xenorium element to our systems. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with. Affirmative. Be advised. Commander, long-range sensors are detecting multiple objects approaching the Elysium system. We believe they may be Reaper reinforcements. Estimated arrival, 12 hours. The transmission cut off as the jamming reasserted itself. Ethan turned to the others, his expression grim. We're on a clock now. 12 hours until more Reapers arrive. The main research facility is 3 hours from here on foot. Jerex informed them. But the area between is heavily patrolled. Then we'll need a diversion. Ethan decided. He looked at the group of survivors. How many of your people can fight? In the end, they formed 3 teams. Beta Team, led by Lena, would escort the majority of the Elysian survivors to a secondary evacuation point where the Retribution could extract them once the jamming was disabled. A small group of Elysian fighters, led by Marcus, would create a diversion to draw Reaper forces away from the research facility. Ethan, along with Jarex and the remainder of Alpha Team, would infiltrate the facility to retrieve the resonance device. As they prepared to move out, Ethan found himself standing alone at the edge of the settlement, staring up at the alien stars. The weight of command felt heavier than ever. If he failed here, the consequences would extend far beyond this one mission, beyond even the loss of his team. The entire galaxy could fall. He was so lost in thought that he didn't notice Lena approach until she spoke. "You're thinking about Titan, aren't you?" Ethan didn't answer immediately. The mission to Titan had been his first command, a routine operation that had gone catastrophically wrong when they encountered an unknown hostile species. His decision to engage rather than retreat had cost 6 good soldiers their lives. "I can't make the same mistake again," he finally said. "Titan wasn't your fault," Lena insisted. "No, we had bad intel, malfunctioning equipment." "I was in command." Ethan cut her off. "The responsibility was mine." Lena was silent for a moment. "You know, after Titan, I requested a transfer. I didn't want to serve under someone I thought was reckless." She met his gaze steadily. "I was wrong. You learned from Titan. You became a better leader because of it. That's why we follow you, Ethan, not because you're perfect, but because you care enough to learn from your mistakes." Before he could respond, a distant explosion lit up the night sky. Marcus's diversion had begun. "Time to move," Ethan said, pushing his personal feelings aside. "Stay safe out there, Lena. Get those people to the extraction point." "You too, Commander." She hesitated, then added, "No, see you on the other side." The journey to the research facility was tense but surprisingly uneventful. Marcus's diversion had worked better than expected, drawing most of the Reaper forces away from their path. Still, they moved cautiously, using the dense forest for cover. When they finally reached the facility, they found it partially destroyed. The elegant architecture of the Elysians was marred by the brutal efficiency of the Reaper's modifications. Parts of the building had been converted to serve their purposes, with the same black vein-like structures they had observed at the hub spreading throughout. "The resonance device is in the central laboratory," Jarex whispered as they crouched in the underbrush, observing the facility. "But the Reapers have established a presence there. They're studying our technology." Ethan studied the building's layout on his tactical display. "We'll enter through the maintenance tunnels. Rodriguez, you've got point. Costas, watch our 6. Remember, stealth is crucial here. We can't afford to alert them to our presence until we have the device." They moved silently through the abandoned maintenance tunnels, the only light coming from their suit-mounted illuminators. The walls were covered in a strange, glistening substance that seemed to pulse faintly. "What is this?" Rodriguez asked, gesturing to the coating. "A Reaper biomechanical interface," Jarex explained quietly. "They're integrating with the facility's systems." As they approached the central laboratory, they began to hear sounds, mechanical whirring, electrical discharges, and something else. Something that sounded disturbingly like human groans. They emerged into a large room that had once been the main research area. Now it was transformed into something resembling a macabre operating theater. Elysian bodies were suspended in various stages of conversion, their organic parts being systematically replaced with cybernetic components. Reaper drones moved among them, performing the gruesome work with cold efficiency. Costas suppressed a gasp. "They're still alive during the process." "The Reapers preserve consciousness," Jarex confirmed, his voice tight with horror. "They believe it enhances the integration process." Ethan scanned the room, looking for the resonance device. "Jarex, where is it?" The Elysian pointed to a sealed chamber on the far side of the laboratory. "There, behind the reinforced doors." Between them and their objective stood at least a dozen Reaper drones, plus several partially converted Elysians whose bodies spasmed occasionally as if fighting against their new programming. We need a distraction, Ethan decided, on something to draw them away from the chamber. Before they could form a plan, one of the converted Elysians suddenly jerked violently in its restraints. Its eyes, still organic but now glowing with the same red light as the Reapers, locked onto their position. "Intruders detected," it announced in a voice that was a disturbing blend of Elysian vocal patterns and synthetic tones. "Assimilation protocols activated." "So much for stealth," Rodriguez muttered, raising his rifle. "A new plan," Ethan commanded. "Rodriguez, Costa, suppressing fire to keep them busy. Jarex and I will make for the chamber." The room erupted into chaos as Rodriguez and Costas opened fire, their pulse rifles cutting down the nearest drones. The partially converted Elysians broke free of their restraints, moving with jerky but determined motions toward the human soldiers. Ethan and Jarex sprinted across the laboratory, dodging equipment and leaping over fallen drones. A Reaper emerged from behind a console, its arm transforming into a blade-like appendage. Ethan fired his sidearm directly into what passed for its face, causing it to stagger backward just long enough for them to pass. They reached the sealed chamber, but the door was locked with an Elysian security system that had been partially overridden by Reaper tech. "Can you open it?" Ethan asked urgently. Jarex placed his hand on the scanner. "My credentials should still work, if the Reapers haven't completely—" The door slid open with a hiss. "Quickly!" They entered the chamber and sealed the door behind them. Inside was a collection of advanced equipment surrounding a central device, a crystalline sphere housed in a complex framework of alien technology. "Is that it?" Ethan asked. "Yes, the resonance device." Jarex moved to a control panel. "It's still intact, but I'll need time to initialize it." "How long?" "Minutes, perhaps 5. Ethan checked his tactical display. Rodriguez and Costas were holding their position, but more Reapers were converging on the laboratory. "Do it as fast as you can. I'll buy you time." He turned to the sealed door, which was already showing signs of Reaper attempts to breach it. The metal was beginning to glow red as some kind of cutting tool worked from the other side. Ethan set up a defensive position, using lab equipment to create a barricade. "Jarex, once that device is ready, what's the plan?" "We need to get it to the hub," the Elysian explained, his fingers working frantically across the control panel. "Once there, we can use it to disrupt the Xenorium flow. The resulting feedback should destroy the hub and any Reapers connected to the network." "And if we can't reach the hub?" Jarex paused, his alien features solemn. "Then we detonate it here. The explosion won't stop their plans, but it will destroy their foothold on this continent and buy your people time to prepare." The door was beginning to melt under the intense heat of the Reaper cutting tools. Ethan's comm crackled to life. "Commander, this is Costas. We can't hold much longer. There are too many of them, and they're adapting to our weapons." "They fall back to the secondary exit," Ethan ordered. "Get back to the extraction point. That's an order." "Sir." "Do it, Sergeant. That's an order," he repeated firmly. There was a brief pause. "Understood. Commander, good luck." Ethan turned back to Jarex. "How much longer?" "Almost ready. The device is charging." The crystalline sphere was now glowing with an intense blue light. "Commander, you should know, once activated, the device has a limited operational window before it becomes unstable. We will have approximately 30 minutes to reach the hub and deploy it." The door finally gave way, a section of it falling inward with a crash. Through the opening, Ethan could see the glowing red sensors of the Reapers. "Time to go," he said, firing through the gap to slow their advance. "Is there another way out of here?" Jarex pressed a final sequence on the control panel, and the resonance device detached from its housing, contracting into a more portable form. "Yes, an emergency exit. This way." They retreated through a narrow passage at the back of the chamber just as the Reapers breached the barricade. The passage led them through a series of increasingly tight corridors until they emerged outside the facility, on the opposite side from where they had entered. "Commander, this is Marcus," his comm crackled. "The diversion worked, maybe too well. We've got Reapers converging on our position from all directions. We're falling back to the rendezvous point, but we're taking heavy fire." "Understood. We've secured the device. Hold as long as you can." Ethan checked his tactical map. The hub was still several kilometers away, through dense forest and likely crawling with Reaper patrols. "We need transportation," he muttered. As if in answer to his thought, the ground trembled beneath them. From around the corner of the facility emerged a massive Reaper construct, a vehicle of sorts, though it moved on 6 articulated legs rather than wheels. Its surface pulsed with the same red veins they had seen on the hub. "Back!" Ethan hissed, pulling Jarex into cover. They watched as the vehicle paused, then began loading crates of what appeared to be extracted minerals onto its platform. 2 Reaper drones supervised the loading process. "That's heading for the hub," Jarex whispered. "They're transporting materials for construction." A plan formed in Ethan's mind, risky, but possibly their only chance. "We're going to hitch a ride." Using the facility's exterior for cover, they made their way around to the rear of the vehicle. The loading process was still underway, with drones moving in a precise, programmed pattern that left brief windows where the rear was unobserved. "Now," Ethan whispered, and they sprinted for the vehicle. They managed to climb aboard, concealing themselves among the crates just as the loading completed. The vehicle lurched into motion, its mechanical legs carrying it smoothly through the forest toward the hub. Huddled among the alien minerals, Ethan checked the resonance device that Jarex cradled in his arms. The blue glow had intensified, and he could feel a subtle vibration emanating from it. "How much time do we have?" he asked quietly. 26 minutes, Jarex replied, checking a small display on the device's surface. "The energy signature is stable for now, but once it begins to degrade, the process is irreversible." Ethan contacted the Retribution. "This is Blake. We've secured the device and are en route to the hub. Estimated arrival in..." He glanced at Jarex, who held up 10 fingers. 10 minutes. Be ready for extraction once the jamming field drops." "Copy that, Commander," came the response through bursts of static. "Be advised, we're detecting increased activity in orbit. The Reaper reinforcements are arriving ahead of schedule." The journey to the hub was tense but mercifully uneventful. The vehicle was granted immediate access to the construction site, passing through what appeared to be a permeable energy barrier that surrounded the entire area. As they neared the central structure, Ethan was stunned by its scale. What had appeared impressive from a distance was truly monumental up close. A twisted spire of black material reaching hundreds of meters into the sky, pulsing with red energy that seemed to flow both within it and across its surface. The vehicle came to a stop at a loading area where dozens of drones were working. Ethan and Jarex remained hidden as the unloading process began, waiting for their moment. "Where do we need to place the device?" Ethan whispered. Jarex pointed to a section near the base of the spire where the red energy flow was most concentrated. "There. That's the main conduit to the planet's core. If we can disrupt that connection, the feedback will cascade through their entire network." They waited until the drones moved to the far side of the vehicle, then slipped away, using the crates and construction materials for cover as they made their way toward the base of the spire. The closer they got, the more Ethan could feel the power emanating from the structure. It wasn't just visual, there was a physical sensation, a vibration that seemed to resonate within his very bones. Beside him, Jarex was visibly struggling, his alien physiology more sensitive to the energy. "Are you all right?" Ethan asked. "The Xenorium, it affects my species more directly." Jarex managed, "But I can continue." They reached the base of the spire, finding themselves before a pulsating mass of intertwined mechanical and organic components. The heart of the conduit was visible, a brilliant red core surrounded by protective layers of the black material. "How do we get through that?" Ethan wondered. Jarex studied the structure. "The resonance device doesn't need direct contact. If we can place it close enough, the disruptive field will penetrate the outer layers." They were preparing to position the device when a voice spoke, not aloud, but directly in their minds. "You seek to disrupt the ascension." Ethan whirled, his weapon raised. Behind them stood a figure unlike any Reaper drone they had encountered. It was taller, more humanoid in appearance, yet fundamentally alien. Its body seemed to shift between solid and ethereal, the red energy flowing through it like blood through veins. "What are you?" Ethan demanded. "We are the culmination of 1,000 civilizations," the figure replied, its voice still resonating in their minds rather than through the air. "We are the next step in evolution. We are the future." "You're destroying innocent lives," Ethan countered. "There is no destruction, only transformation. All that you are, your knowledge, your genetic material, your very essence will be preserved within the collective." Jarex stepped forward, the resonance device clutched tightly in his arms. "You take without consent, you strip away identity, individuality, free will. That is not preservation, it is annihilation." The figure's form rippled, as if in contemplation. "Your perspective is limited by your singular existence. Once you join the collective, you will understand. You will thank us." Ethan realized the entity was stalling, keeping them engaged while more drones converged on their position. Already he could see movement at the periphery of his vision. "Jarex," he said quietly. "How close does the device need to be?" "Within 5 meters of the conduit core," the Elysian replied. Ethan made his decision. "Place it now. I'll hold them off." As Jarex moved toward the conduit, the figure's demeanor changed. "You cannot be permitted to interfere with the ascension." It raised an arm, which transformed into a weapon unlike anything Ethan had seen. A writhing mass of energy and matter. Ethan fired his rifle, the energy bolts passing through the figure's semi-solid form with minimal effect. The entity returned fire, the energy weapon sending out a wave that knocked Ethan backward. He slammed into a metal support structure, the impact knocking the breath from his lungs. Drones were closing in now, their movements coordinated by the central entity. Ethan fought through the pain, firing methodically to keep them at bay while Jarex worked to position the device. "Ethan," Jarex called. "It's in position, but it needs to be activated manually, though there's no time to set a delay." Ethan understood the implication immediately. Someone would have to stay behind to trigger the device. "Get clear," he ordered, backing toward the conduit while maintaining suppressing fire. "Get to the extraction point." "Commander!" "That's an order, Jarex. Your people need you to rebuild." The Elysian hesitated, then nodded. "It has been an honor, Commander Blake." "Likewise, now go." As Jarex retreated, Ethan found himself surrounded by Reaper drones with the central entity watching from a distance, its expression, if it could be called that, unreadable. "Your sacrifice is meaningless," it communicated. "You cannot stop the inevitable." Ethan smiled grimly. "Maybe not, but we can sure as hell delay it." With a final burst of covering fire to clear a path for Jarex, Ethan reached the resonance device. The timer showed less than 5 minutes of stability remaining. The blue glow had intensified to an almost blinding brilliance, and the vibration had become a tangible force. His calm crackled. "Commander, this is Retribution. Lena's team has reached the extraction point with the survivors. Marcus is reporting heavy casualties, but they're falling back. What's your status?" Ethan took a deep breath. "Mission accomplished. The device is in place." He paused. "Tell Lena. Tell her Titan wasn't her fault either. We all make choices. This one's mine." "Commander, get our people home. Retribution. That's an order." As the Reaper drones closed in, Ethan placed his hand on the activation mechanism of the resonance device. The central entity seemed to realize what was happening, its form becoming more solid as it surged forward. "You will be remembered, Commander Blake," it promised. "Your genetic material, your memories, they will join our collective. Nothing is truly lost." Ethan thought of his team, of the survivors escaping, of all the worlds that would have time to prepare because of what happened here today. "Some things are worth losing," he replied, and pressed the activation switch. The world exploded into blinding blue light. The resonance device released its energy in a massive wave that tore through the conduit, disrupting the Xenorium flow. The red energy that had pulsed throughout the structure suddenly reversed direction, flowing back toward the core in a chaotic surge. The central entity screamed, not in his mind this time, but an actual physical sound of rage and pain that echoed across the clearing. Its form began to disintegrate as the feedback cascaded through the network, tearing apart the connections that bound the collective together. Ethan felt the ground beneath him tremble as the disruption reached the planet's core. The black spire began to crack, red energy pouring from the fissures like blood from a wound. The drones around him collapsed, their connection to the hive mind severed. As the structure began to collapse, Ethan closed his eyes. He thought not of his failures on Titan, but of the lives he had helped save today. Of Lena, Marcus, and all the others who would carry on the fight. Of the galaxy that would now have a chance. In orbit above Elysium, the Retribution watched as a massive energy surge erupted from the northern continent. The jamming field collapsed instantly, communication systems coming back online throughout the ship. On the bridge, Admiral Frost received the final transmission from Commander Blake, her normally stoic expression softening with grief and pride. "Get our people out of there," she ordered, "and prepare a full report for Earth Command. They need to know what we're up against, and what it cost to get this intelligence." The Retribution's engines flared as it moved to extract the surviving members of the mission. On the tactical display, they could see the Reaper reinforcements in orbit suddenly falter, their movements becoming erratic as the hub's destruction severed their connection to the collective. In the southern hemisphere, at the extraction point, Lena looked up as the blue wave of energy spread across the sky. She knew, without being told, what it meant, what Ethan had done. "He always said he wouldn't make the same mistake twice," she murmured. Beside her, Marcus nodded grimly. He didn't. This time, he saved everyone he could. As the Retribution's shuttles descended to collect them, Lena made a silent promise. To herself, to Ethan, to all those who had fallen. The Reapers would return. They always did, according to the legends. But next time, humanity would be ready. Aboard the Retribution, as it prepared to jump to hyperspace, Admiral Frost drafted her report to Earth Command. The final paragraph read, "The threat posed by the entities known as Reapers cannot be overstated. They represent an existential danger to all life in the galaxy. However, thanks to the sacrifice of Commander Ethan Blake and his team, we now possess critical intelligence on their nature, capabilities, and potential weaknesses. Most importantly, we have proven that they can be defeated. Earth and her allies must prepare for the possibility of future incursions." But we do so with the knowledge that even the most dangerous predator can be hunted. After all, humans evolved on what the galaxy calls a death world. Perhaps it is time we showed the Reapers why. 3 months later, at Earth Command Headquarters, a memorial service was held for those lost on Elysium. Lena, now promoted to commander, stood before the assembled officers and dignitaries, her expression solemn but determined. Commander Ethan Blake once told me that the measure of a leader isn't found in their victories, but in how they handle defeat, she said. He believed that our greatest strength comes not from never falling, but from rising every time we fall. On Elysium, he rose to heights few of us could imagine. He faced an enemy that had conquered countless civilizations, and he showed them that humanity will never surrender, never stop fighting. She paused, looking at the faces before her, humans and aliens alike, united in their resolve. The Reapers will return, but when they do, they will find us waiting. Not as separate species fighting individual battles, but as a united galaxy standing against the darkness. Commander Blake gave us this chance, this time to prepare, to build our defenses, to forge alliances. We will not waste it. As she concluded her speech, Lena's gaze drifted to the viewport, where Earth hung like a blue jewel against the blackness of space. The planet that had forged humanity in the crucible of evolution, creating a species tough enough, resilient enough, adaptable enough to face even the most implacable enemy. The most dangerous Deathworlders in the galaxy had been summoned by an alien SOS, and they had answered.